What's up guys, we're back. We're here with Kerry Peeler.
Hey guys, how's it going?
He's one of my friends. I met him through the great sport of kayak fishing. He's a really awesome angler. And we were talking the other day. Told him about how I completely jacked up this reel because I was fishing. It's a freshwater reel and I've been fishing it in salt forever and I never maintained my reels. He asked how often I maintained them and I was like, maintaining? So he offered to come over and show me how to maintain my Camino 200 E7. So that's what we're gonna do today. He's gonna take it apart, have a look, and while he's having a quick little maintenance session with it, I'm gonna try to learn as much as I can so I can start servicing these reels myself. That's coming up right now, so stay tuned. Alright guys, so I'm gonna turn on the overhead camera so you guys can see Kerry's hands while he's working on the reel. Let me just do a quick little old school TV sync. Okay, we're gonna start off by just showing us how he takes apart the reel. So this is a Shimano Camino 200 E7. It's a 7:1 gear ratio.
7:1 gear ratio, fast reel. Basically how I start, you're gonna take off the side plate. So on this particular reel, you're gonna open the cover. You have it open and close. You're gonna open this up. You're gonna turn it to the open, and then you're gonna slide the cover down. All right, we're gonna hopefully get it apart. This is why you service your reels. Oh, hey, there we go. It was stuck.
It just comes.
All right. So on this particular reel, it does have a pin in the back right here that holds the side plate into the reel. So on this, it doesn't come apart completely. It only comes apart like this to swing back.
Oh,
so
cool. Okay.
This is going to come up like this and it's going to swing back. So that's how it initially opens up, and then it has access to the spool. And then what we're going to try to do is we're going to turn this, and we'll probably have to take his tape off to get the spool out. And dropping the spool out sometimes can be difficult if you have a lot of line on the reel.
So the only thing holding the spool in place was this plate. Like it just. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then so on this, when you have too much line on, then you're going to have to pull a little bit of. We don't have to do that. We just need to pull the. We just need to pull the line apart, which we probably should have done this first off.
Yeah, so we're doing this one take, guys. So
yeah, one take.
Solid roll.
That's right.
Kerry's got stuff to do.
We got it.
I need to practice my FG knots anyway.
We think we got it. Because what's going to happen is I just need to pull. I got to pull all this off to where I can get the spool off.
To fit, yeah. This is kind of a good thing to point out too. Like that's why you don't want to overfill your spool.
You definitely don't want to overfill your spool.
And I didn't know any better. I just was like, throw as much on there it'll fit.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
You're not supposed to go up past this little. You have two little. There's a little bevel here, and that edge down there. That's where you want to stop. You filled it all the way up to the top, which is definitely too much line. Cool. And then what also will happen is if you have too much line on there, when you're reeling it, the line can actually hit on the bottom of the spool right here.
Yeah. And
when you're casting, it'll feel great. You're reeling in, and then next thing you know, it feels weird, and it's because the line is hitting in this little bottom piece down here. Yeah, on the bottom of the spool.
I have too much braid on my 13 fishing reel.
It's all right. Hey, we all got to learn somewhere.
Guilty, right here.
Yeah, guilty on that one for sure. He's got way too much line on that one. So on this, we got the spool out. On this particular reel, there is no bearings on the actual shaft of the spool. Sometimes you're going to have a bearing that's down here. This particular reel doesn't have it, and there's no bearing on this side because it's usually in the cover plate or the side plate on the side. Perfect. So on this, we're just going to take the spool and we're going to set it aside for now, and then we're going to go to looking at the first part of the reel. So on this, usually what I do after I get the spool out is I'm going to take a rag that's you can use anything you want as a rag. Just I would say I'd have two. One that's going to be like a dirty rag to get most of the dirt and stuff off initially, and then I would have a clean rag that you can wipe stuff down after you've actually taken dirt off and you've got most of the chunky stuff off. Then you can go through and you can wipe down the reel after you've done some cleaning on it and help you to...
If you want to use my toothbrush.
Yeah, toothbrush is actually a really good thing to work on reels with. And back in the old days, people used to use toothpaste to actually clean the reels. Yeah, you can use toothpaste on them if you really need to get some, especially saltwater stuff, some corrosion.
Yeah.
It has some abrasiveness to it, so you can use that to take some harder to get stuff off.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say, why are you using a Q-tip that's going to have fuzz that comes off in the reel? I don't worry about that. I just clean the reels. The little bit of fuzz that might come off and get in the reel, it hasn't stopped my reels from working. So, but I usually just take at least one Q-tip and just do a basic clean when I first start opening the reel up to get a lot of stuff off, and pretty much have to go through everything. Roman hasn't
haven't
services since he started fishing. I know he hasn't been fishing that long, but you know, fishing in the saltwater and freshwater combo, he's got some looks like some Lake Barrett grass over here, maybe some Mission Bay eelgrass. You know, we'll get that out of there. Yeah. So, but yeah, you know, just as a basic, trying to get as much of the reel clean before we actually get into cleaning it, so you don't get any of the dirt that's on here back into the clean reel or into any of your new oil, and get it into, you know, places where you don't want it to be. So we're gonna wipe everything down on the outside, and I'll be wiping it down again after we put everything back together. But this is just to get it pretty much cleaned up before we even really start on doing anything.
That's cool.
So first thing after I get this apart to this point is I'm going to start taking off the handle and get all the way down. You got to take the handle, the drag, the star drag off, and then take the side plate screws off, which you have on this particular reel. There's 3 side plate screws, and it doesn't look like there's any on the inside. Sometimes there's a screw on the inside here that holds the plate together. So depending on the type of reel you have, you got to check. You have to check the screws on this side to see if there are any, if the plate doesn't come off.
Right, cool. And then does it matter what the drag setting is before you start taking it apart?
That doesn't matter, because we're going to take the star drag completely off, so
cool.
It doesn't matter.
Cool.
One thing that I always do, just because the screws are so small, I always use a flathead if it's possible to start taking the screws out, and then I will take them out with the Phillips, because it's easier to get in there and get them loose, or to spin them completely out with the Phillips. With a flathead, it's easier it gets a better bite on the screw.
That's a good pointer.
And that way you do not strip out the Phillips part of the screw, because I've done it in the past where I strip out the Phillips and then the flathead doesn't work either, and then you got to replace the screw. So first thing, we take that screw off, and then you have the handle nut cover, which on this one, this is going to come off. It's just basically a plastic nut cover that covers the nut on the side. And then we're going to get to the handle nut, and we'll see.
So let's talk about this tool here.
This tool, actually, I got this tool from an old Quantum fishing reel that I got probably, I don't know, at least 15 years ago, and I've kept the tool. That's perfect. It's worked on every single reel I've ever had. So it gives you a spot for your thumb. On that particular reel, it actually had a little Allen wrench that you had to use on a side cover screw.
That's cool.
So this has been the best tool I've ever had. Better than any tool anybody gives you with the reel. This was the best one. And it fits every reel that I've come across. So on that, you give it a couple turns. Usually it's loose enough that you can unscrew it by hand. And then we got this. So you got this nut comes off. And then on the Shimano, the star drag on this particular reel, which I've seen on other ones, it does have a spring underneath it. So when I took that nut off, the handle wanted to pop off. So then you got you can see this, all these pieces start wanting to fly out of here.
Yeah.
So you got this piece goes on here. There are two sides to this piece.
Yep.
There's a flat side, and then on the other side it has a lot of little dimples which fit into this part of the star drag
Yep.
that actually acts as the click when you're turning the drag. If you can feel the click, that's going to be on that. So if you put it on upside down, you're not going to feel that, and it's probably not going to work very smooth.
Yeah.
Where if you put it, you got to put it back together the right way.
That's cool.
So then on this part, the star drag on this is not screwed down. A lot of reels, the star drag actually screws down to this main shaft. On this particular reel, it's just the star drag piece that actually sits over the top of this piece here, which is the part that fits into this square nut, and that is actually the piece that we need to get to. So we're going to take the spring off, and then we're going to get to this, and then we're going to try to get this off. Good man. Roman fishes with a tight drag. I like it. Doesn't give the fish anywhere to go.
Yeah. Ever since I started messing around with braid, I'm like, ugh.
So then we take that off, and then on here you're going to have a couple of crush washers. These crush washers, they have a definite shape to them. They're kind of a concave shape, so you have two of them. I don't know, on this you can see.
Oh, yeah. You can see from the top, that's fine. You go, just
yeah,
like that.
so you have a concave shape, so you have two of them. When you put them together, you want to make sure that the two halves, when they go together like this.
Cool.
You don't want to have them go together like this, because the drag isn't going to work properly. So when you put it back together, you got to put the two pieces back together like this, so then they crush down like that. So it creates the drag pressure on the actual piece in here, which applies the drag pressure on the spool.
That's cool.
All right.
So, quick question. I don't know if this might be too technical, or if you even care to answer it. But can you get like heavier or thicker washers, and that will increase the amount of drag you can put? Or
on the crush washers, I haven't found unless you actually buy a different crush washer for a different reel and try to make them fit. What I've seen, what you can do is there's actually flat washers that a lot of reels will have like as a shim, and you can put a flat washer on there, which is really thin. I mean, it's like a third the size of that thickness. Right. And you could put one of those on, and that's going to increase the drag pressure a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, you know, and that also goes down to if the drag washers on the inside, if the drag washers are worn out and you have to crank down on the drag, the star drag further, that's where these, you might say, oh, I'm going to put a shim, but when in essence what you really need to do is replace the fiber washer that's inside the drag.
That's cool.
So that's one check where if it's like you got all the way down, your drag's all the way tight, and you don't have any more drag pressure, then you know that your fiber washer inside is crushed to the point where it's not working anymore, and then you got to replace that part.
That's cool.
So we got these parts off. Now that's going to give us access to the side screws. Again, these do have a flathead in them, so we'll just bust them loose with a flathead. And this is bust them loose with a flathead. You probably heard all three of those. They're nice and tight. Never been opened before. They didn't want to come apart.
Crusty with salt crystals coming off of them.
I've seen that. I've had these screws get corroded in a reel before, and that's why if you use the Phillips head, Phillips screwdriver, you can strip them out. So then on these, on some reels, the screws are different lengths that come out of different spots. So when you take them off, you're going to want to like set them out and put them kind of in the order how they came out. Because I've had a couple reels where I've actually had 3 different screws that come out. There's 4 screws and they're 3 different sizes. So you got to just make sure once you do it a couple times, like see that one, longer, that's a longer screw. It goes in this first top hole, where the 2 other ones, they're the same size.
That's cool.
All right, so we got those apart. Now, if there's nothing on the other side that's holding this together, then this reel should, this side plate should come off. and it's looking like it's got something else that's holding it up. So we probably are going to have to find a pin, which on this one I just see it. There's a flathead screw right here that has a pin that holds the level wind, the upper level wind part. It's probably going through here, and as you can see, it goes all the way through, and they're using that as a screw. So most likely this is the other screw that comes out, and then the side cover is going to come off.
It's like a double duty screw.
Yep. And the reels are small, so they got to figure out how to make stuff work with as few parts as possible to keep them light.
Get that nice and rusty.
And nice and rusty, that nice saltwater fishing. Lots of casting, lots of reeling in, going back and forth over that. So it's rusted that out a little bit. So we'll clean that up as best we can. And then the side cover comes right off.
Wow.
And then we open up the side cover. And on this, you can see on here you got a little bit of salt buildup. Not too bad. I thought it would be a lot worse than this, so it's not that bad.
All right.
But yeah, and then you don't have a lot of salt buildup on this side either, so it looks all right.
The dark stuff, is that the beginnings of rust or just grease?
Actually, that's a corrosion, a little bit of corrosion that starts because these are brass. They're brass gear, so you get a little bit of corrosion that starts on the gears, but. On that, it's nothing that's going to hurt the workings of the reel at this point. It's not bad enough yet. All right, so after taking the reel apart, we have a little bit of corrosion built up on the brass gear. Not really that big a deal, but then we do have some salt buildup from him fishing the saltwater on the spring. That's not going to be good. You're going to want to keep these clean all the time, because these two little springs are basically what's going to keep your push button when you to disengage the reel so you can cast. And if those get weak, it won't depress and it won't disengage, and it's basically it's going to be the end of the reel for the day or for a while until you can fix the springs. So that's definitely something we're just going to clean off, and then clean all the little corrosion that's built up on here. Not really that big a deal, but it's definitely something that might make the reel not function like it was.
That's cool.
And then on here you have on this is the anti-reverse. You have an anti-reverse spring anti-reverse bearing that's in this the side cover here. This is the piece that goes in. On this, it has teeth cut in it, which it can only go in one way. There's a lot of reels that don't have teeth cut in it, so when you pull it off, just make sure which way it goes back in.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of them will have they'll have a flat surface on both sides, and that goes on the shaft, because the shaft isn't round, it's got flat edges. So you just want to make sure that which side that piece goes on. A lot of times the little flat surfaces are on the top side, so when you take this off, when you first look at it, you're gonna see the little flat ridges. When you turn it over, the flat ridges really aren't on the bottom of it, it's more at the top. So a lot of the reels, if it's not a Shimano, it probably has those ridges, and they're going to be at the top side right here when you go to pull it off. So you just want to make sure you put that back on right. This one, you can only put it on one way, so that's not that big a deal.
That's cool.
All right, so now we're going to try to pull this gear off. Try to get the gear to pull off without losing anything. Didn't lose anything. So on this, basically this is what happens to a brass gear after you fish it a little bit. It just starts to get the salt water gets on it. It's really not a corrosion at this point. I mean, it's started, but it's nothing you can feel. I mean, it's totally smooth. You can't even really feel anything on there. It's just on there. And then on this, you can definitely see where you have a drag washer on the bottom side here, and then you have you open this up, and then you have a second drag washer here. So on this plate, you have a little bit of transfer onto this on the metal drag washer, which isn't that big a deal. This is common, normal for any reel. And then on this washer, you can see that there's corrosion building up around this. So we're gonna take this apart. We're gonna clean this, take the washer out, just clean everything underneath it, and get this stuff off, and then we'll be ready to put it back together. On this drag washer, this is the fiber washer that will usually, once this gets crushed down, you'll need to replace it. This one still looks in pretty good condition.
So if you crank down your drag and it's still not putting enough drag on the line, this is what you need to replace. Yeah,
pretty much. This is probably going to be the one that's going to wear out before this one. The material on this does wear out a little bit faster than the material that's on these on this drag washer. This particular one, it looks pretty thick. It's still pretty good condition, but you can definitely see on the edge here, right here, it's smashed down a little bit, and up here you can still see that it's raised up. So it's it's on its way to getting crushed down, but it's still on both sides. Like this side's it's crushed down a lot more. It's still usable. I would say definitely don't need to replace it at this time. But that's definitely a piece that you're going to want to replace, because it is going to be crucial to your drag actually working at all on the reel. Next piece we have, this is the big anti-reverse, the anti-reverse gear, and then the anti-reverse dog. These two pieces on the Shimano. This one, these little guys, these usually come off. There we go. So that piece just slides off of there. There's no real corrosion or anything in that. Sometimes on these, if this particular pin right here gets any corrosion built up on it, it can weaken the spring in it, which it has a spring tension that helps to catch on here. When it doesn't have any tension on this, it can go back and forth pretty easy, and sometimes it won't engage. It'll just sit there and it'll spin. So if these little guys get worn out and your reel it's back reeling, and if you're sitting there and it's like you're going and then it back reels, it can be this piece is just spinning in here backwards, and it's not catching like this. It's just it's spinning like this back and forth instead of doing this, which is the anti-reverse. Or the anti-reverse bearing in here could be bad, or both of them could be bad at the same time. I've had that happen where both pieces have been bad at the same time in a reel. So that's definitely something that you got to look at, as to identify if this is bad. You can pretty much put the handle on and put all the pieces on, and then back reel it. And if this collar goes into the bearing here, and you can reel it backwards, then this bearing, it's a one-way bearing. So if it's going backwards, then the bearing is bad. If it's not going backwards, then most likely your problem is this little piece. These guys have lost their tension, and then you're going to need to get a new anti-reverse dog, and that will make it sit like that. If it's worn out, like I said, it's just going to sit there and spin like this and go backwards, and your reel is not going to function.
That's crazy.
So I've had that happen a lot. And it happens a lot in salt water because of the corrosion. On certain reels, on older reels, it happened a lot because these weren't, and they didn't have enough corrosion resistance. Newer reels, they're a little bit corrosion resistant. They're better at it, so these don't wear out as much, but they definitely can wear out. So it's something that if you're having a back reeling issue, definitely look for an anti-reverse dog, or check your anti-reverse bearing in the side plate. Some reels you can actually change this bearing out. Other reels you can't, and you'd have to get a whole new side plate to replace the bearing. It just depends on the manufacturer and how old the reel is. So all the companies are different on that. So it just depends on your particular case if you can replace the bearing or not. All right. So after we get the main gear off, then we look at the inside of the reel. Pretty much everything looks normal for not being cleaned in a while. There's a little bit of corrosion buildup, but not too bad. I usually, I take my nasty looking Q-tip, but I'll roll it in here, and I'll just get in where I can, try to get as much of the gunk out as that I can before I take anything else apart. I just try to go in as best I can get, all around the reel. On this, I think I'm gonna actually take a toothbrush.
Oh, you brought your own toothbrush?
Of course, I clean reels. I gotta have my own gear. This guy he's new. He's like, oh hey, I'll give you my toothbrush. I'm like, well that's nice. But I do have a few toothbrushes. They do work wonders with cleaning stuff out. It gets it a little bit quicker when like a first cleaning.
Yeah.
This works better when the reels are pretty clean. The Q-tip usually just takes off just little surface stuff,
That makes sense.
and it works a lot better. So this cleans it out a lot faster and gets more stuff off pretty quick. And then on that, after I do that, I'm gonna go in and just try to because with a Q-tip it picks it up. With a toothbrush it doesn't. It just gets it knocked off and gets it loose. So then we'll try to clean this up, get this stuff cleaned off, and then from here we'll take the spool gear off. It's not coming off as easy as it should because this pin had corrosion, which was that same spring.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's a little bit of corrosion, so it wasn't letting it move up and down. And I got it off of here, and you can see on here you got a little bit of corrosion buildup, which this is not good because that's not going to let it move up and down real easy.
Yeah, and that's probably why, like, when I go to like open the drag, no, when I click it so I can cast.
The thumb control.
The thumb control.
Or sorry, the cast control. When you push that,
yeah,
it's
like sticking.
It's sticking because it's got corrosion on this, so it's not sliding up as easy. And then all that corrosion, when it is sliding up, it's building up on the spring. So then that's going to be a double problem.
Yeah.
This post will corrode and it'll get pitted.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it will wear on this, and it won't work that good, and then that spring will break. So I've had that happen in the past to other reels. So I know this is definitely a problem that will happen because most reels do have this sliding piece that holds in this the secondary gear for the main gear on the spool. So that piece goes in, and what it's doing, it's sliding up and down, and when that gets corroded up, it doesn't slide as easy. So that's definitely a problem that can happen.
Cool.
This gear,
I didn't tell him that's the I didn't tell Carrie that's what I was experiencing, but it's funny how you just like you diagnosed it without me telling. That's cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that's definitely I could tell what's going on. And on this gear, you can kind of see you've got rust.
Yeah, I see
definitely
that one's rusted right there.
Rusting quite a bit on this. So that's the salt water getting in there. You see the greenish corrosion that's getting on the brass. That's what that's that saltwater corrosion on the brass.
Perfect.
So that's totally normal. But that's why you always got to clean the reels all the time, and especially this is a freshwater reel using a saltwater. I would clean it. Because it would be on a kayak, I would probably clean it after every trip just to make sure I didn't get any water in here. Once the water gets in, it starts corroding things. It's gonna take stuff apart real quick. I mean, you're gonna lose your reel pretty fast. I've had it happen to me in the past, so I've been pretty particular of cleaning it after pretty much every trip when I go out kayaking, especially if I get water splash a lot. Or if it's raining out and you get water, even if it's freshwater rain, but it is over the ocean, so it could have salt mixed in, and you got the salt when you're reeling in, the spray coming off of the line.
Yep.
It gets in through the spool, the side, and it gets into the reel. So you get salt water that can get into the reel all over the place. So definitely that's why you can see just a couple pieces. The brass doesn't really get affected as bad, but this could affect your when you're reeling. It could feel a little bit tight or grindy, and it might be because these are pitting or something over time. That's just something that you have to look for.
And they sell these parts individually, like this?
Most of the parts are available individually. All the companies are different. You can go on different websites and find parts. Usually the manufacturer has a website or a source that service departments or something will have real parts that you can get. A lot of it you can just look up. On this particular reel I looked up before, and I did see that Shimano online, they have a schematic blow up of the whole reel taken apart, And then there are parts when you go on to a website, there are individual parts. Sometimes certain parts are not available or out of stock. Other times, you know, everything you need is in stock, so you just have to look it up. And you know, I would say if you are gonna invest in buying some parts just to save on shipping, I would buy some additional little pieces that you think if you look at it, say, hey, that might go out or might go bad in time. I would just pick it up because usually the parts are anywhere from, you know, from 25 cents to $5, and you know they're going to charge you probably, you know, anywhere from $6 to $10 in shipping. Yeah. So you might as well just load up on your parts and just pay shipping once, and it'll save you some money and some aggravation if you're missing a 25-cent part and you can't use your reel, which I've had happen to me. So I stock up on parts.
Nice. Nice.
All right. So where we're at on this now, we just like we said, we have some corrosion that's built up around here. I'm just going to use the toothbrush and try to clean this up. On this particular reel, it looks like it has it does. Some reels have a bearing right here in the center, and this one, it is a bearing, but it has a brass race. A lot of times they'll have a bearing and it will be actually a stainless steel race. This one has a brass race right here, but it is a bearing. This is rotating, and that goes around the spool. Actually, this piece goes through that, and that way if this does hit on the sides, it will spin. Oh, cool. This won't get hung up. If it does hit on the sides, it won't get stuck on it, because this is going to come up through. It's going to come up through here, or actually, sorry, this is going to be down right here, so this can get stuck in here. So they have it to where on here you can see it's rotating in there. A lot of reels have a defined bearing. This one just has you know, like I said, a brass race. So we'll just clean this off a little bit. These the way the material is on this, it's kind of it's a little bit different metal, and when it corrodes, it starts to get funky. It gets I don't know, it starts what I'd call scaling. It starts to peel apart, and it gets rough. So there's not a lot you can do. I mean, I can feel that it started to do that. What I do is I will take, almost like a dentist will sit there and scale teeth. You take a little bit harder something. I take in a flathead screwdriver and just trying to scrape this stuff off to try to get it smooth again. Just because if you don't get this stuff off, it's not gonna work right. Let's see.
It's pretty cool.
All right, so that came off pretty good. I don't think there's any need to do any more to that. It looks like it's pretty good. I did clean right around the edge of this with a new Q-tip and just get the little stuff that's built up around that race. And then I have a trusty tool that I've been using forever. This is basically a finishing nail punch for your house, but what I find is when I'm working on bearings, I can slide the bearing over the top of this and it'll sit down here, and I can hold the bearing, or I can actually put this through the reel and I can sit it in here and I can check bearings, and I can feel if they're rough or if they're corroded.
That's cool.
So I can put it in here and I can spin it, and when you're holding the reel, if it has any corrosion or anything build up, you're going to feel it's going to be notchy in your hand. This feels really smooth. It doesn't have any resistance or anything. So I think what I might do before we put it back together is I'll just put a little bit of oil around this, and it'll seep down into the bearing, and that'll be fine. We don't need to, I don't see the need to take it completely apart. If it was rough, I would take this completely out and clean that bearing all the way. But on this, I'm just going to put the oil around this. It'll seep in, and that'll be fine. Cool.
That's a cool little hack.
And let's see. So on this, when you on the thumb bar for the cast button, when you push this down, it's going to operate. There's no real springs. I'm going to put my finger over it just to make sure. But so that piece slides back and forth. A lot of times what will happen is you'll get stuff that will build up along this area, all along here. You'll have stuff that'll build up and it'll create resistance, which makes it harder for this piece to slide down. So what I do is I'll get this in the loose position like this, and then we'll try to clean it off, scrub it as best you can. Slide it back up. And then flip it over on this side. On this side, it pretty much, the way this one is designed, it doesn't come all the way over like this side. You have a spot along here where it could have resistance and it could be dirty. This one, it just is moving within the cast button, or the thumb button itself. It just moves up and down. So you just got to look in here, and you got a little bit of a
some more seagrass.
Some seagrass, something. You got a little bit of something build up. Not too bad, but there's a little bit of stuff build up in there.
Some spotty scales. Okay.
I didn't see any spotty scales, but yeah. So on that's moving smoother now. So what I always like to do, everybody's different. You can put a little bit of oil on here underneath it to help it to slide better. What I usually do is I put a little bit of grease on it, because the grease is going to stick to it a little bit better. And I've always done grease on it. Some people don't like it. Some people just like it dry. You're going to have to find your own niche as far as how you want to do your reels. But I always put a little bit of grease. I feel that it helps it slide, and it keeps the corrosion from building up underneath the plates. So you don't have any buildup underneath there. And it's not like I'm putting a ton. You just put a little bit and you start working it back and forth, and over time it spreads out underneath it, and it gets a very thin layer. So it's not like you're loading it up. You're just going to put a little bit on there.
So nice little protection.
A little bit of production, but it will go a long way. So let's see. So on this is the kick lever right here. You can just push this back and forth, and that's operating fine. This isn't worn out. A lot of reels, this piece right here, the little kick lever, every reel has them. This kick lever right here is what wears out all the time, because that piece, that kick lever is the kick lever is actually coming in contact with this piece when it's on. So this comes in contact with that, and it's kicking. It's going to kick that. This is going to turn, and it's when this is engaged, this piece comes and it hits that, and it kicks that back into place. So a lot of times what you'll have is you'll have wear that'll happen on this. If it wears enough, it won't work. It won't kick back enough. So this is a piece that if you're pushing it and you crank it and it doesn't kick back, this kick lever could be stuck, or the kick lever could be worn out to the point where it's not working anymore. So you would have to replace the kick lever. I've probably replaced more kick levers in my reels than any other part. This part goes out, and especially if you're bass casting, freshwater or saltwater, constantly casting lures, this piece is getting contact every single cast, and it's a hard contact. It's like you're kicking that when it clicks.
Every time you click,
that's your clicking it back. You click it forward and you click it back. That click back is hitting this every time. So depending on the reel maker, these can wear out faster than others. This plate usually doesn't wear out. It's usually the kick lever itself that wears out. So another part I would definitely check on this when you're taking them apart. If you're having a problem with engaging the reel, you go to crank the reel and it's not clicking back in and the button's not popping back, it's probably your kick lever is bad or it's sticking. And then that would be, again, greasing, putting some grease on this whole movement piece so it slides back and forth better.
Nice.
Everything's looking good on this. I haven't done any lubrication yet because we still have one other piece to look at, actually a couple other pieces to look at, and then actually looking at cleaning a couple more things as well. But on this, you have the main shaft. So you have the main shaft here. On the main shaft, there is a bearing down underneath all of this, and a lot of times if you have, when you're reeling the reel, if it feels rough, it can be this main shaft bearing all the way down, because water can get all the way down in there and set and corrode that bearing. On this, it feels pretty smooth, and at the same time we're checking that, we're also checking some reels have a bearing underneath this side and this side. There's a bearing for your level line, and some have a bushing on each side. On this one, I have a feeling it's a bushing on each side. I'm not familiar with this particular reel, but I think it's a bushing on either side, and it might even be a bushing underneath here, which it doesn't feel bad at all. It feels pretty smooth, but just for the sake of things, since we're right here, I'm going to go ahead and take this the main shaft off and just check it out and see if it is a bushing or if it's a bearing, and then we will lube that. And again, using the flathead to pop them loose, and then go back in with the little Phillips.
That's cool.
So on this one, it does have, there is a bearing in here. You have a bearing that's attached right here, and it has a little, just a little circlip on there. These little guys will shoot off a million miles an hour, so taking these off, definitely be careful with taking these off. I would do it inside a rag or something, because they will disappear very quickly. Not a lot of corrosion. There is a little bit of corrosion in here, which isn't that bad. It's pretty clean for never being cleaned and fished in the salt water. This is pretty clean. This is the only part right here where now what we have is not losing our screws, and we'll feel this bearing. Now I feel the bearing. To me, it feels a little bit rough. It's not bad at all, but it definitely feels like it's dry. So we're gonna need to lube that. The look of the bearing, it looks like it can be taken apart. Some bearings, they have a pressed in seal that you can't take out, and other bearings have a clip that goes around them, and you can pop the clip out, and then you can take the shields off. If they're a pressed in shield, then you can't do that. So then you'd have to just put oil around the outside, and it'll go in between the race and the shield. There's a tiny little gap, and it'll soak in. Yeah. But on this one, since it does have, it looks like it does have the ability to take the shield off. We're gonna give it a try.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. We'll see if we can lose this piece.
Do you need eye protection?
If you are paranoid, you can use eye protection.
That's good.
Always a comedian in the group. Always gotta be a comedian in the group. He's forgetting that this is his reel, and if this part goes flying, it's him the one that's not gonna be fishing, not me. My reels are at home and already cleaned. So
nice.
All right, so we took the clip off, and it has a little like a little thrust washer on there.
The thrust washer was on top, was below it.
So you had this,
cool.
and then the thrust washer was right on top.
Cool.
So you took the clip off, then the thrust washer.
Cool.
Then you have the bearing that comes off, and then you have this piece, which is the retainer to bolt it back into the plate, and then there's actually another thrust washer in here, and then you have the actual gear for the level line. So you have a lot of little parts.
Breaking it down.
Yes, we are. We're going all the way down. So on this is just a quick, didn't really have any corrosion on it. And on the bearing, this is where my little Trusty tool comes in, then I can hold the bearing and I can spin it and take a look at it, try to see if it has a removable race. I think it does.
You can break down that even further?
There, yeah, the races, it doesn't look like they're crimped on, so I should be able to take them off. And you guys are gonna laugh, but
hang on, let me get make sure the camera's on here.
So
that's hilarious.
So the tool that I have found, which is really crazy to try to take these clips off, is a jig head and a fish hook. It has a really fine point, and it's able to get in on. It's able to get in here and get these clips out easier than any pick. And with the weight of it, it helps hold it down. And it's a counterbalance tool. It's really crazy, but this works the best of anything I've tried to take these little clips off. And what I do is I'll just stick the point in and I'll rotate it around, and usually you can feel the clip if it has one. And I am not feeling it, because usually you'll rotate it and it'll pop into place and you'll feel the clip. I'm not feeling a clip in this bearing, so what we might have to do is just put oil in the bearing and not be able to take the seals out. It might be this bearing, because some bearings they're pressed in seals and you can't get them out. And this one has got a pressed in seal. I can't take it out.
Oh.
I thought I would be able to, but I cannot.
That hook still cleaned up some gunk goes in there.
And that's another good thing, is that fine point will get out some dirty corrosive stuff around there. Before you even take the bearing apart, you get a little bit of the dirt out. So on this, all we're going to do before we put it back together is we're just going to put a few drops of oil. What I usually like to do on the main shaft bearing is I like to put grease on it instead of oil. Main reason being is it's not the spool, it's not spinning. The bearing itself isn't spinning with your cast, so grease will slow down that spinning. When it's on the main shaft, the bearing, when you're reeling, you have a lot of pressure. You can bypass grease or oil. You're not going to feel that. So grease is going to hold up better on the main bearing, and I would use oil on all your spool bearings. But that's something that I've always done, is I put grease on the main bearings if I can open them. Since I can't open it, we're just going to oil this and put it back together, just because that's all we can do on this particular one. Let's see. And real oil and grease, there's a million different ones out there. A friend of mine, he gave me this little bit of this oil. He told me, hey, this is a new thing, it works really good. And I tried it, and it works amazing on the spool bearings as far as getting better casting distance and spinning. It's a synthetic lubricant, and it helps fill in little microscopic pores that have opened up from corrosion. It fills that stuff in, and it's a better lubricant than anything that I've seen so far.
What's it called?
This stuff is called TSI 321. Yep, TSI 321 synthetic lubricant. This little guy right here. I've looked it up. I saw a lot of different places that have it online. Like I say, my buddy gave it to me for free, and it works amazing. So I've used a lot of different stuff over the years, and I started using this probably 6 months ago, and I'm not going to use anything else. This stuff works. Cool. Yeah, this stuff works really good, especially in salt water. It helps protect salt water a lot better from getting in here. So the bearing, just by lubricating it, I could tell it was dry. It feels a lot better now. So we got a little bit of lube. Some people put a little bit of lube, some put a lot. As far as this being a gear, the main gear bearing, it doesn't really matter if it has a ton of resistance, which it's not really going to be that much. So I'm just going to put a little bit more oil than normal on the crank side, or the crank or the shaft bearing, just because you're not going to really want to get down to that too often.
Oh yeah.
And we'll just put that on there, and we'll just go ahead and put that part back on, put the bearing back on, put this back on.
Does that bearing have like a direction? Does it matter? No, right?
The bearing does have, when you open it up, the way the bearing cage inside, there's two sides to the cage. If you open up the bearing and you can see the different sides of the cage, I usually try to put it on to where it's easiest for me to service the reel without having to take it all the way apart. So I'll put the seal side that I can get off and get to the bearings, whereas the bottom side of the cage, you can't get to the bearings and lube them. It's kind of the holder of the bearing, or the ball bearing. So if you can open it, then you can try to put it one way or the other. But
that's cool.
When something like this, it doesn't really matter. They go both directions, so you don't have to worry about it being a one-way bearing. That's only on the side cover plate on the main shaft is a one-way. And then these are always fun. We'll try to lose it. If we can get it on here, which, man, see, look at that. I can't even. This is about the point where Roman's like, dude, are you gonna put my reel back together? I was like, I don't know, I could lose this thing across the across the room. So got this thing ready to go back together. The easiest way I found to do it is you sit it down and try to push it in with a flathead screwdriver. Sometimes you have a metal gear, but if it's a plastic gear, you got to be careful that you don't crack it. These little guys are a really tight fit, but I had to get out the pliers to basically pop this ring back on. We put a little bit of oil on that. That's all ready to go. So what we're gonna do now, after I did this, I know that these are bushings underneath here. They're not bearings. I can see that they're little bushings. So all I'm going to do is just take the applicator for the TSI 321. It's an awesome little applicator with the needle-like.
Oh, that came with it?
This came with the pack that I got. This came together.
That's
so
a cool applicator.
this is the best thing I've ever had cleaning reels. I'm like, oh my gosh, where were you like 20 years ago? So on this, I'm just gonna. It actually had a little bit too much oil, but I'm just gonna sit that on there. I squeezed it while I wasn't looking. And on this one, I'm gonna try to squeeze in and let it run down into it.
So that's in between the gear and...
In between the plastic gear, and it's going to run down into the center, and it's going to find its way to that bushing. If you want to take this all the way apart and you got to take this side and take this whole thing apart.
That's another round clip.
And and that's another one of the little clips. And because it's a bushing and I was spinning this, it spins pretty free. I don't really want to take that apart. So we're just going to put some oil down there, and there's different train of thought on the worm gear on the level wind. Some people like to put nothing on it, leave it dry. Some people put grease in it, and some put a little bit of oil on here. Biggest thing is that stuff, you have debris and stuff that can come in and get stuck in this. So if you put oil, it's not really going to catch as much of the debris. If you put grease, it's going to catch more of the dirt, and it's going to get it gummed up, and it's going to make it work a little bit tighter. So
you can't just rinse it as easily.
It doesn't clean as easily because usually there's the cover plate that goes over. So you usually have the cover plates on here, and it's covering the worm gear. So cleaning this out, sometimes it can get pretty bad. So a lot of times I'll just put a little bit of oil on this and then run it back and forth with my finger just to get the oil in it, or you can just let it run dry. It's up to you, but I definitely wouldn't put any grease in it because grease is just going to catch everything,
dirt,
and it just gets gummed up, and whatever grease you put in there, it's going to be dirty, and it's gonna stick it up. And it could make you feel like you have bad bearings or something in the reel when it's actually just this level wind getting stuck going back and forth in here, and you're like, man, my reel doesn't feel good, but it's just grease collecting dirt inside this and getting stuck. So I usually just put a little bit of oil on this. I'm just going to put a little bit on here and just put a little bit of oil on that, and then because there's nothing engaged on it, I'm going to run it back and forth. And that's pretty much all I usually do on these, just because I just don't want them to get stuck with a lot of dirt. I don't need them to get bound up. It's one less headache that you can actually prevent by just putting oil on it.
Perfect.
So at this point, pretty much everything on the reel is pretty much done, gone through. Just gonna start to put a little bit of grease and oil on different parts and start putting everything back together.
It looks like you also cleaned here, right?
Yeah, while we were taking a little bit of a break, I went ahead and cleaned up a lot of the parts. Just wiped them down and got everything basically ready to reassemble.
Cool.
So at this point, we're just going to start putting some oil and grease back on these certain parts and start putting the reel back together.
All right, guys, we're gonna put this thing back together, and while he's putting it back together, he's gonna lube the parts that need to get lubed. So just call it the parts you're lubing, and then other than that, we should just get it going, right?
That's pretty much it. Like I said earlier, I just put a little bit of grease on this area just to slide that, so that's going to slide better. It's not going to bind up. I know I said don't put grease up here, but there's a lot more stuff that can get up here. There's not a lot of stuff that gets in here to get this bound up, and the grease is going to help this slide. It already feels like it slides better in that area, and it's right at the pressure point of your thumb. Yep. Right here. So when you go to push, it's going to slide easier for the push. So I always put a little bit of grease there, and then I do put a little bit of grease right here on the kick lever. So on the kick lever, when the kick lever comes down,
oh cool,
you have the kick lever will come down and get a little bit of grease on it, and that way it will help it slide so it doesn't bind up, because I've had these stick where they stick open. So we'll put a little bit on there. Bearing here, it doesn't have a seal that can come out, so I'm just going to put a little bit of oil. I did a little test on the bearing and checked it. It worked. It works really good. And my little test, I take a Phillips head screwdriver. I put the Phillips head screwdriver in here, and then you watch the inner race and you spin it. If you make sure the inner race, which this is the inner race right here, if you can see this spinning while you're turning the screwdriver and you don't feel anything, then your bearing is working perfect. If it's bound up or if it's tight, a lot of times you can feel the binding. So this bearing feels really good. I'm just going to get a little bit more oil, put some oil in that, and that bearing is going to be good to go. And we're going to move on to putting this stuff back together.
Awesome.
So put the main shaft back in, put the screws back on there. I know there's a lot of different grease out on the market. One that I've found that I've been using for a long time, I use the hot sauce from Quantum. It's red. So if it gets on you, you can see it's on my rags. You can see it stains pretty bad, so don't wear anything nice if you're gonna do any reel cleaning. And it seems to work really good on saltwater reels, so I've used it for quite a while. I know everybody's got their own opinion on grease, but I've been using this for a long time and it works pretty good. So, and on this, I just put a little bit on there just so it'll spin freely. On this piece, it's hard to see in the camera, but you do have,
don't have a good view on top.
You have a step right here, and this is going to fit a step on the kick lever here. So you just have to make sure that this step lines up with the step on the reel. If you put it in backwards, it's definitely not going to sit right. So when you sit this down on the two pins like that, this is going to sit right down, and it's going to go right onto that piece. And then that, when you push the button, this pops this up so it disengages the spool.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you put it backwards, it's definitely going to sit up wrong, and you wouldn't be able to put the reel together. So it's only pretty much going to go in one way. We already cleaned the springs off, took the corrosion off of the springs. We're going to put the springs back on. Let's see, I gotta just to put a There's a little bit of grease on the outside of that. I just put a tiny bit of grease on there just so this will go and spin. I don't want a ton of grease on that. It doesn't really need any, but I put a little bit, and then when this sits down, it's cut out. It's cut out. It has like its own shape. It's a square shape, and it fits down on there. So then what you want this to do is to turn and then kick back. So that's your anti-reverse right there. So that's working properly. Then you have your drag washer that's going to go on there. And then on the main gear, I've seen a lot of different things happen over the years, but what I've learned is you do not take the grease and put grease all the way around the gear, because what'll happen is when you open the reel, you'll have grease everywhere inside here. It basically all throws off when you're reeling. So what I do is I'll take and I'll usually put a spot, and then I'll spread it, and I'll put it on about, like, I'll put 3 spots on the reel, and I'll put 3 little spots of
about a 1/4 inch
of grease on the gear, and that way what it does is it starts to spread it out over the whole gear. It covers the whole gear over the time of fishing, and it doesn't throw it off onto the reel. That's which cool. When you're using, like, this grease is a little bit more expensive. You're losing a lot of grease by putting a ton on there. It's just throwing it off, and it's getting dirty, and you're wasting grease. So if you just put a little bit, and once it starts turning around, it's going to coat. It's going to coat the whole gear. So you can put a lot more grease on it if you want. You can put a little bit. I've learned to put a little bit on there and make sure you don't bust your reel apart. Check it because it fell. Make sure that it's all working. Fantastic. But yeah, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't use a lot of grease. Let's see. On this is the cast control on this side, and it is a bushing. Actually, oh, it is a bearing. Well, it is a bearing. I thought it was a bushing. We're going to take this off, and we're going to probably have to put a little bit of oil. Put a little bit of oil down on this guy. I just felt it right now. It felt pretty good. I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on that and put this cast control button back on. Most of the time these do not go bad. Checking it, it's spinning perfect, so there's nothing, no need to pull that one out at the moment. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the anti-reverse bearing. Not a ton of oil, just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way on this stuff. No need to go overboard. That doesn't want to stand up. Alright, so on this, we're going to put this back on. This little guy is going to go on here.
Oh yeah, that's by the guide over there. That's cool.
Yep, so that's going to be on there, and then you have the
little nick to get out of the corrosion.
Yeah, the corrosion, it corroded a little. It's probably from putting a hook. Maybe a hook came across the front of this and nicked it, and then you got corrosion buildup. So that's why I never hook my baits to the reel. I always put them on the handle or a rod guide, but I never put them on the reel anymore because I've seen them nick this and then they corrode. And once they corrode, there's pretty much nothing you can do at that point. So that, we're going to put that in there to hold it in place. I'm going to hold that in place with that, and then I'm going to get the make sure the spring, so you have the spring here, gears in, anti-reverse dog is in. You can turn it a little bit, turn it back. You can see everything is working. So we're good to go to put the side cover back on. Now we're going to put the side cover plate back on. Set the side cover on. Take the long screw. I'm going to put the one screw in, Phillips. Get it all the way down. Let's see. Get that one all the way down. my little, put this back on.
That's cool.
Because it has the little notches that are going to go into the gear, you can just spin this just a little bit and it already popped back into place. You'll feel it. You'll push it and you'll feel it pop right in. My little pin was holding, but it fell out, so I'm just going to put this in. I'm going to put this side pin back in. So we're going to do this. Oh my goodness. This is why I don't know why they ever use a flathead on the reel. Phillips is so much better. Alright. That looks good. So, let me put the other screws on here. Alright.
It's work.
It's a little bit of work.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of work, but in the end, it's going to get your reel back fishing. So that's the ultimate goal here.
What's that?
These are the two concave washers that you got to make sure you put them on opposing so they don't.
Oh, yeah.
So you put them on, you can see that they're cupped like this, and you're good to go.
That's cool.
Let's see, and then this little guy, we're going to put this guy on. We got to put it on that way, on there. Actually, we got to put that guy on like that, and then we got to put that guy on there.
What do we do with all the extra parts?
Well, if they're extra, then I guess they weren't needed. Because if I put it back together and the reel works, it's like, well, then we didn't even need them to begin with.
Weight reduction.
Yeah, we're reducing weight. Actually, and on this, man, I feel like a total rookie. I'm not used to Shimano's, and I'm like, and I'm missing, well, yeah, there's a little piece that came out of that little piece, that tiny little guy goes in there. Yeah. This little guy goes on here, and I am seeing where it goes now because I'm pretty sure it goes in between the spring, and that was a total rookie move because I had them all lined up and then I took it apart, and now I'm like, which way did it go?
We can do a video recap.
Yeah, we might have to back it up and look up a schematic online.
That's a good point though. That's a good point. Like,
because I'm not familiar with this reel and the way the parts were lined up, the way I thought I would put it back together.
And then I'm over here distracting him too. So we're gonna go back, look at the video. But if you're doing this yourself, it's probably a good idea to like make sure you line them up the way you take them off, and if also take a picture while you're disassembling it.
You might have to.
We have pictures. We have videos, so we'll be right back. Cool.
All right. Get that back on there. On this little guy has a tiny little spring and this little click indicator that goes on this piece, and that popped out of the little star drag, so you got to make sure you don't lose that guy because that would really ruin your day. And then on this, we're gonna get this. We're gonna put that down. On this, you don't have to spin it down. This doesn't thread on. So you're just gonna put that, and then put all the little dimple side down, the non-dimple side up. Put that on there. And then put the handle. And that spring's tension, if I let this go, it's gonna shoot up and hit the camera right there. So you gotta make sure you hold the pressure and make sure that this is good to go. You got to hold this down, push this down, and then grab your nut. Get this on. And tighten a little bit more.
line up that with the handle?
So you have to pretty much the nut right here.
Yeah.
The end of the nut or the flat side has to be even with this screw hole, because when you put this on, you got to line that up.
Yeah,
so when you got that lined up, that should line up to put the screw in.
That makes sense.
So that lines up so you can put the screw on.
That's cool.
So we put the screw on there. I'll put that like that. Take the flathead. Tighten that.
Get the little torque.
Get a little bit of torque.
He's doing exactly 8 pounds of torque, guys. His hands just rated. He's got like the feel. Oh, this game, don't believe the torque stuff.
Yeah, don't believe any of his torque settings. And then the only thing left to do is take.
Oh, let's cut it.
Take this nice leader and extra line here, and we'll see.
Here? Might as well.
Yeah, you can just cut it off right there. We just get rid of this extra so we don't have to deal with any of this.
It's already worn down with so many fish.
Man, look at this guy. He's a regular jokester.
25-pound braid, 25-pound fluoro.
All right, and then we're gonna go in here. We're gonna go in there like that. Put the spool in, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna close. It's clicked, and then the moment of truth, we got the drag crank down. I'm gonna
crank it down to 100. Woo!
No. So right now that's a good sign. The thumb bar cast button is depressing and it's working pretty smooth.
Cool.
I think. I don't use the reel, so I'm not sure. I'm going to give it to him. He can check it out. This the spool control, as far as the looseness, tightening, it's working. And then the drag, actually we're going to get a little bit of line off of here, and then I'm going to pull on the drag. Drag's working fine. Sweet. Another trick that I've done in the past is I'll loosen the drag and I'll spin the handle. It's not the best way to check the drag, but then you can tighten it, and if you can feel it incrementally getting tighter, then you know that the drag is working, which it's working. Or you can pull it with braid. I like this method better, so you don't cut your hand with the braid, but that's everybody's different. So we'll do that. And we'll back off the drag just a little bit, and the reel seems like it's working. So it's working pretty good.
For the record, Kerry coined the phrase "bite-tastic."
Bite-tastic. All I know is one day we were fishing and I was getting tons of bites and he was not, and I was like, man, it is bite-tastic over here. And it was pretty fun. Awesome. It was pretty fun. It was fun. It's fun fishing with Roman. If you guys ever get a chance, he's always smiling. He's always in a good mood when he's out fishing. It'll put you in a better mood fishing.
Awesome.
As far as cleaning his reel,
and I'll catch less fish than you.
he would probably catch less fish than you, so it'll make you feel like a better fisherman. But I just wanted to come and help him out with his reel because I know he's new to the fishing. And when he told me that he hadn't cleaned his reel at all, I was like, dude, you got to clean your reel. You got a freshwater reel in saltwater. You got to take care of it. Especially if it's a pricey reel, you definitely want to take care of your reels so you don't, you don't lose your investment. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna let him play with it and see if he thinks it feels better.
Awesome.
And he can let you know if I did a good job or not.
I was having issues with my weak left hand undoing the oh, that's nice. Right there. That's because sometimes I'll be like handling a fish and I'll need some more line, let it out, and then flip it over my left hand, and I'm like, oh, okay, you gotta help myself. It was so like
it binds up because it had the corrosion in there on that spring. So yeah,
it's way better. Dude. Oh yeah, I was like before when I was doing the slow retrieve, I could feel something in there like going.
Yeah, it was a little bit of stuff in there, not too much,
Nice.
but like I say,
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad, but
It's way smoother.
it feels better to me.
I
I felt it before we started, and feeling it now, it definitely feels a little bit smoother. So
yeah, on that slow retrieval, I was definitely feeling the little bumps. And I can't feel them. Yeah, I can't feel them.
That's
cool.
what happens when you clean your reels.
I'm gonna cast so far. That's good.
Now what he's gonna go out and he's gonna backlash, and
Like
then he's
crazy.
gonna lose about 30-40 yards of braid, and then he's gonna go, dude, I don't want my reels cleaned ever again. So when you first clean a reel, definitely make sure you check your cast control settings so you don't backlash on the first cast, because I've done it. I clean reels for my friends, and when they go out first cast, they backlash because they're used to it.
Remember that day? You had just oiled it or something, and it didn't take effect until like a couple of casts in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it to myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did it to myself, and I didn't pay attention to my own warning, and I spent 20 minutes getting a backlash out. It was pretty embarrassing,
But I still got more fish.
but I still caught fish that day. But it's definitely something, if you're gonna work on your reels, definitely if you have the tools, just lay everything out, put it back together the way you took it apart. If you need to replace parts, check out the manufacturer's websites, and usually they have a part link where you can order schematics to show you the parts that you would need, and just order them up and then put the stuff back together. But yeah, definitely maintain the reels. Freshwater reels and saltwater, I would do it after every trip. Saltwater reels in saltwater, you might be able to do it every 2 or 3 trips if you're kayak fishing, but I would recommend taking them apart after every time, especially if you get water in the kayak, or if you have a lot of splash, or if you take waves or something, you're going through the surf, you get water in them. I would just definitely take them apart and take a look, because you're gonna protect your investment. And if you're gonna spend money on an expensive reel, you might as well clean it. It's just one more part of fishing that's going to help you out. So take care of them, and what we did here should work with pretty much any reel. Every reel is a little bit different, but basic components are all the same, and they're all going to look pretty much the same as what we did.
It's pretty awesome.
So
guys, for me this is super intimidating. Like when you open it up, and not just the plate over here, but when you actually opened up where the gears are. Once I saw the little gears, I was like, ooh, that's a lot of stuff. So
yeah,
now I feel a little bit more comfortable trying this myself. So I don't know, watch me do a couple of these, watch this video a couple of times before you try it, and then pretty much have to bite the bullet and start doing it. And then it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be super easy down the road. I think I kind of had the same experience this last week with like the airbrush, like cleaning your airbrush. So I started to painting these baits. So like the airbrush, when I first heard about it, you have to like take it apart to clean it, right? Oh, I was like, no way. That sounds like it's gonna be hard. It sounds like I'm gonna break it. But like, I'm super good with it now. Like every time I paint, take it apart, and I feel super comfortable with it. Like I can do it while I'm talking to you guys. So it's like not. It was super intimidating at first though, way intimidating, and now it's like not so bad. So, see. Yeah. Hopefully that'll be me taking apart that reel and putting it back together just like that. So
piece of cake.
Thanks, Kerry.
Piece of cake. No problem,
Awesome.
man. Thank you, Roman.
Cool. All right, guys. If you found this video useful, let me know. Leave it in the comments. Let me know. Hey, Roman, I want to see more videos like this where I have somebody come in here and teach me to do something, and then I share it with you guys so you guys can also learn as I learn to become a better angler. So let me know. Leave it in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up. It's crazy that we're already at 699 subscribers. So I've been putting in a lot of work to grow the channel. As you guys know, I've been out there reaching out to everybody I can find that has been watching my videos, letting you guys know that please subscribe and share if you like my videos. So I'm gonna ask you to do the same. And for those of you that don't know, that are new to the channel, we have the ongoing subscriber giveaway right now. When we hit 700 subscribers, we're gonna give away a gift card to East County Bait and Tackle for 50 bucks. That'll be when we hit 700, and the winner will be selected from the Roman Castro Vlog Insiders email list. So if you want to be eligible for that giveaway, you don't have to buy anything. It's free to join the Roman Castro Vlog Insider list, and it's also not in any way, shape, or form affiliated or sponsored by YouTube. It's all me. So check it out. If you guys want to be eligible for that contest, go to romancastro.com/giveaways. And if you don't know, we're doing a giveaway every 100 subscribers. So the next giveaway is going to be at 700. And at 700, we'll be giving away a $50 gift card to East Canada Bait and Tackle. At 800 subscribers, we're going to be doing another giveaway, which is another $50 gift card to East Canada Bait and Tackle. And then for 900 and 1,000, we're going to be doing something cool, something more exciting than a gift card, even though a gift card is pretty exciting. And for 1,000, we'll be doing something even better than that. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Remember, the only way to win is if you're a member of the Roman Castro Vlog Insiders email list. So go sign up, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at Roman Castro. Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys soon. And again, let me know what you think about this type of video. If you guys like it, let me know and I'll make some more. So thanks. I'll talk to you guys next time.